So we did find that most students are attending a college or university that is very much in line with their preference. It's not 100%, but among the students who told us in February and March that they preferred to attend a public institution, 86% of those students are in fact planning to enroll at a public institution. And among those who told us they preferred a private, either religious or non-religious, 73%. So again, almost 3/4 are in fact attending a private institution. So this is how that lays out if we look at a sort of a preference by enrollment matrix. And really, the more interesting ones would be the switchers. The previous slide, yes, most of the students who preferred a public are attending a public. Most of the students who are preferring a private are attending a private. But what about those students who aren't choosing their preferred type? First, we have the private switchers. These are students who, in February or March, told us they preferred to go to a public institution, but in fact are enrolling at a private institution. This is very interesting because it's really sort of counterintuitive this year. So what motivated those students to enroll at a private when they had earlier indicated a preference for a public? And we'll look into that. And then the public switchers. So these are students who in February or March said, I prefer to attend a private institution, yet in May, they tell us they're going to a public institution. So why is that? Maybe that's probably a little more expected this year. So first, we're going to dive into students who preferred a private institution. Again, you know, some of them enrolled at a public, some of them enrolled at a private institution. And if we just look at that third column there, the students who preferred a private and enrolled at a public institution. You can see there that they were, in terms of their first choice, they were less likely to be enrolling at their first choice. So that public institution, you know, wasn't their preferred choice of school. And when we asked them, okay, why are you not enrolling at your first choice school, they were more likely to say that it was because they couldn't afford their first choice school. That was why they weren't going. The ones who preferred a public or enrolling at a public even though they preferred a private are also more likely to be going to an in-state school. Not surprising there because it is a public institution. They also were less likely to have applied for financial aid at their enrollment school. They were less likely to be receiving either need-based or merit-based aid from that public institution. And they were also slightly less likely to have appealed the financial aid offer, and also if they did appeal to receive some sort of an increase in their financial aid. They also were, if you look at the last two lines there, their final decision was more heavily influenced by economic concerns. And 55% compared to 43% said that the economic conditions did make their final choice more difficult. So why did they end up choosing this public institution or this private institution? If you look at the students, again, who preferred a private but decided to enroll at a public, they were more likely to say total costs, close to home, and their parents' preference were more of an issue in that final decision, as you can see there in the red boxes. The students who preferred and enrolled at a private institution, on the other hand, were a little more likely to cite scholarship or financial assistance, academic reputation, the campus setting or environment, or at the bottom there, not surprising, religious affiliation, because that would be an option for a private institution. If we look at the students who preferred a public institution, again, it's a very similar data, so I'll go through it a little bit more quickly here. We're looking at the switchers, that third column of data there, so students who preferred a public and ended up enrolling at a private. Again, a very interesting group because it's somewhat counterintuitive there because it might have been a more expensive choice for them. They were comparable in terms of their first choice school enrollment. They were a little bit less likely to say they couldn't afford their first choice school if they weren't going there. They're less likely to be going to a school that's located in their home state. They were, however, more likely to have applied for and received aid from this school. So clear, you know, what that indicates is that financial aid was clearly a factor for this group, and that's why they were able to go to a private even though they had preferred a public institution. They were more likely to have appealed their financial aid offer, and they were more likely to have received an increase as a result of that appeal. And they were less likely also to say that their financial aid offer was lower than expected, so it was higher than expected. And then in terms of whether or not the economy influenced their final selection, it certainly had an impact, but not as much as the other switchers, as you can see there in the bottom two rows. And why did they choose their enrollment school? The students who preferred a public and enrolling at a private, more often than not, it was scholarship or financial assistance. Job prospects after graduation was also a little more of a factor for them, and the quality of the faculty at the private school they were going to. The students who preferred and enrolled at a public